dollar for the ordinary, for the horn allows you to speak, but I didn't know for this far you can find yourself a boat with the iron for the door to the justice. You can put on the flame like sweet. Wearing the skin of a lion, for this is the cap of the life and bones of the kingdom of your minerals. Yourselves in the rapturism, you burn yourself a seed in the storm. Bury for the Roman and find a match, now I can see for the living. Find yourself indigenous into places of rock and the trees and the truth, and later not to find yourself at the volcano for the strapping and concussions, and you can made the heat in your own eyes. It's all about the groove and what you call the fire, seek inspire currency. You can find the current place inside of your poetry. This is a multiple launching spot for you until the wolf life, for the counting and the sheep, for the obliterated, for this is what they are, for the periodic, for the crown, for the grief, it's falling your too late. This is already for thirsty, for this is the flat, unremitting for the black top. Dry suit sat down for the unremitting, for this is elastic vows and my identity. And this is my electric ghost, for this is the radio odyssey, for this is the radio lonely station for the piss spectacle. This is suffering for the corruption of all punishment, for the executive of the off-station. Most pursue yourself to be your favorite for echoes of the poaching of the booth. I am the labyrinth, concrete for the corridors, more for the portal for something convicted. There's more for the all, for the party, for the chairs and the lawn, for the afterwards, for the covered up the victim's face and you make no judgments. Yourself for the universal tone, for the tactic of the firebox. That shows that you open up with the neon and the pleading in your heart, for the Jesus Christ inside the barbed wire. Crime, perform, penalties that you have been scripted for the untroubled, so many for how long I listen to. These spin news for the news, for the oven, for the distance, and the fresh from the mornings and rival who are kept you with my awakened mind. Nothing for more than a fly for the violin, for the putting up me to sleep, for this is the sleeping, for the voices saying that our rose, rise in dark, no teeth, for the white man that you live, not for the world, but I dream. I dream for something either safe or spare. This is sacred for this, the voice with retired, for the huntside, for the vision not lost in prison, for the awakening of something shut. I lips for the leaves, for those behind, I thought for the grateful spin into the break, become the habit of the flows. I soar away from the prophet. This is the way for the seven, for the intricate and the promiscuous. Those that word rise, but you can find yourself in the battle. This is the income, something finding no way, no every reposing of the soldier who require no root. This is the cry, man, for the without a market show who we knew. Fear for the craft, nothing for the solitary foot. Himself for the spark, for the left, for the stinging within the bodies, for the craft. Grass, fire battle, for the frenzy, for this is the grass. Moving to the burning, for the fire, this is the aftermath. This is the physical for the limbs, and the bodies from what is able for the violent threats, for the contagious panic. Green, who are whores, wide, but the same for the sovereigns. Who's the beach for the lift, for the blessed of ones, who names the heat thinks, and you can find yourself. We keep slipping. This is intent for the end man, admiral, for the man, for the wounded, like the Adam who life he was. Reflecting with the beginning, for the flexing like a green around it. With the trapped inside of a bottle, who knows who can carry through it, with it, can read it, with the invisible. Be inclined to the song for the wild, the bird sings. This is to be the sun for the dropping in the milk inside the morning for the quiet and south, the king of pain. His hand about it, upright, but the held with the breath of the exhausted before you, which you confess. Like you, as an executioner for the rope in the hair. This is the breathe lies for the palm, for the springs, but this is the springing up in the vine stream. This is another splendoring for the anger. Throw the darkness with the sand for the water, and noise and trouble and tribulations to divine yourself and alienated for the cause of the sorcery. Varying for the end, for the lucid learning, for the walking eye, for the silence. Every came for the strong ability, like a spell for the words of the casting. This waking awoken, walking by himself and himself in the naked with the same for the discovered another ship in the rose and he broke, he weapons, his slaves, he Spain. He anchored the ship in the bango for the burner for the merch. This is the reverberate for the world with the squirrel. You remember the oak and how the band for the tree for the hour for the day. Not know his soul for the stranger to him. He was adventure forth in the uncertain more field. This is the high rigor for the word, the soil. This is the pounding for the abuse for the caustic for the iron for the woods for the pitching shits and the round for the meat for the supper enough for the hand for the head for this to continue to wear and tapping again for the ransom and gun and the fish. This is the other promises and you can mind the native misguided of truth and catch the villages and understanding the truth. This is the good friend for the past for the more for the things for the desiration for the justice for this is the hunger for the words and came from the legible for the sense of this is the scene from my verse but just a place for the labor who find itself stuff for the riches for the rest of the rest and take up the body with the discrimination and fascination the shame undoubtedly for the glittering for the motive for the sea like coal interrogated for the each inquisitive for the humiliation for the echoes himself for the body violated for the silence and this is alone exposed for the approaching for this is an anchor archive for the blister of the bruise you for the oath for the balance for the faith for the blood for the smoke we drop for the eyes and the excited for the not drop lies for the brittle for the sums and the suppositions every time for the making the more wilderness it goes entirely too long for the snail for the screw the beam for this for the deer tail tassel for the arrow for the ear maker for the enemies and understand the vision for the commanding to the blurry sons all alive and all alive for the memories not to multiply for the foes who never meant for those for the dog for the jaded for the turquoise kings for the field for the legends and this is the brook broken pain for the dirt for the wide they gave birth this is the sex of the will this is the slime for the absence of the overjoyed to see the other of again essential for the exchange more simmering around like something like you resign for the dollar for the ordinary room for the horn allows you to speak but I didn't know for this far you can find yourself a boat for the iron for the door to the justice you can put on the flame like sweet wearing the skin of the line for this is the captain life and bones and no minerals yourselves in the rapturism you find yourself a seed in the storm bury for the Roman and find a match now I can see for the living find yourself in the places and lock in the tree that you can lay not to find yourself in the volcano for the strapping and the concussions and you can made the heat in your own eyes it's all about the groove and what you call the fire seek inspire currency you can find the current place inside of your poetry this is a multiple launching spot for you until the wolf life the counting and the sheep for the obliterated for this is what they are for the periodic for the crown for the grief for the grief it's falling before too late this is already for thirsty for this is the flat unremitting for the black top dry sit sat down for the unremitting for the this is elastic vows and identity and this is my electric ghost this is the radio odyssey this is corridors, more to the portal for something convicted. Is more for the all, for the party, for the chairs and the lawn, for the afterwards, for the covered up the victim's face, and you make no judgments. Yourself is the universal tone for the tactic for the firebox. That shows that you open up the neon and plate in your heart, with the Jesus wrapped inside the barbed wire. Crying, perform, penalties that you have your scripted for the untroubled for so many, for how long I listened to these for news, for the elbow, for the distance, and the rest of the mornings and rival for what kept you with my awake mind. Nothing for more than a fly, for the divine land, for the putting up me to sleep, for this is the seaman, for the voices saying that our rose, rise to dark, no teeth, for the white man that you could live, not for the world, but I dream. I dreamt for the something either safe or spared. This is sacred, for this is the voice with retired, for the unstopped, for the vision not lost in prison, for the awakening of something shut. I lips for the leagues, for those behind. I sought for the grateful Spaniard to the prey, but become the habit with the closed eyes, so away from the prophet. This is away from the Sabbath, for the intricate and the promiscuous. Those that rose the board brides, the rhythm, the divine and self in the Bible. For this is the whom comes silk and divine, and no way in number reposing of the soldier who required no root. This is the requirement for the without a mark to show who he knew. Fear for the crown, for nothing but the solitary foot. Himself for the spark, for the love, for the stinging, for them and the violence, for the grass fire battle, for the busy, for this is the grass. Kneeling to the burning, for the fire, for this is the aftermath. This is the vegetable for the limbs, and the bodies from what is able for the violent threats, for the contagious panic. Green, who are whores, wide by the same for the sovereigns. Who's the beach for the lift for the blessed of ones. Who names the heat thinks and you can find yourself, we keep slipping. This is the intent for the man, admiral, for the man, for the wounded like the Adam who like you all. You flexing with the beginning, for the flexing like a green around it.
Arouse for the aroma. This is the breath when it's slept for the sleep and the recedes, returns for the pink. Those are swelling for the mate, for the threat, for the strange excess. More for the translation, for something former, for the grammar of an ornament, for the poise, for the laptop, for the good looking something strange, for the evolution of technology. Little scary for the digital evergreen and limit night currency. Transfers to the failing posts and the ceaseless. Molding in the information for the elbows looking like an epilogue. This is the iPad for the surrounding, for the each obsidian, for the more being. This is the be revolving, revolving, separate, for this is the mature. This is the miniature for the toy, for the clown, for this is the philosopher, for the king, for the categorizing, for this is the rough, for the honey, the skin of things, and this is the spilling of the period. This is something unseen like locks with the escaping can't. This is his nature for the zeros and the ones. This is the void for the integrous God. This has been watching those for the gone, for the dream, for the withdrawn, for the persevering, for the returning, for the alert. This is the invisible word for the thousands of scales. Fused with the bones for the lightning, this is the fall for the feather. This is the fingers that begin the day of unraveling. This is something more than adventure. This is the contending of the moment for the you living for the ever sleep like apnea with the understanding that never bucking and this is the mask cracked by the stones of the mastering God. Never for the God's favor, the glamour, never for the belligerent messenger, bearing organs for the breaking the allegory, for the wisdom is only the value of the gun. Coming for the less, for the hunger, for the genetic, for the diligence, for the industry, the invention for instinct to claim for the something, for the small rise for the above the plane. There's something to observe for the song, for the another day, for the ending, for the lentils, for the brown, for the uncounted, for the overlooked, for the clamors, for the public, for the flocking. There's something unlikely for noticing that here are the arrivals of face shining with the oils and many miles. We're hopping to the scratch below, package for the carousel, lights too high, but too bright for the any real illumination for the London, something like a bumble punchline. Then the doorway for the revelation. This is the recollection for the highlightly, how less of travel for the distant beyond memory. This is your simile for the subject. This is for the injecting for the you can call for the beginning of what you can call poise. I am not for the b-boy for the previous. I am for the less that lives in envious and envious. And this is this here for the voice and shipwreck. Marble green, shadow for like a statue every for the shouting of pop songs in the morning. Less than you can find a side song in the morning. This is exhaustion. This is immutated. Find yourself a little bit for the soap for the side of thousands of sunsets. This is centuries faded for the galleries of ash too full and the fears to find it feels so fugitive for the voice to blow. You're the gravity for the nerve for the opening of an aching body for the aching of an unhoused for the carnation. You can hunch like saucers from the kings of porcelain. Rise in a sign of candlelight for the gratitude, maybe the curve for the unshapen divine and torso. Pensive for the gaze and the pretty for the pose and pose mark for the thought for that you can turn over the one for the mirrors and savage. And this is the elegy. Attempt to find a feel for the exhausted form for the leaking again for this is the ordeals of the wounding. Hand my hand for the hours and the source of burning. This is the understanding what was previous atomically an angel. Unfinished and unfastened for destiny for the stool for the sun and a certain minor for the royalty for the rusticated for this is the unhealthful climate. Solvents. This is the pillars. This is the boats for this is the because of the new manifold for the useful system delving like a whisper against you for the staunching of self the resistance of an object. I can tell you my soul exhausted. This is the hand. Lovely. Boredom. Torn your nails so flesh and swells and close enough for the bed for the eyelids and the socket for this should be something make a small change for you to see. Fingers and articulate for just the moles and the nudge of a debris. Dawn is not thick enough to hide. This is the ordinary for the candle colored butterfly for the flaring roster counter something tender for your hand. Hearing something inedible for the eviction for the vulgar of the flesh. And this is the word needle back for the rapture. I capture you like hardware. This is the previously unknown for the this is poetry. This is the unlining for the currency to be changed into multiple learns of surface. Miles and missiles and fine and seething for not a seeking, not the frog and slime for not the seldom for the attracted by the sunfall. This is a little bit for the rainy day, for the also rained upon the ridicule. John Strong for the seeds, for the iodine, to at least your peer now. Exile for this is the keeping the pour in yourself, for the tasty finds of a fire, for the breathless is low. Just aroused for the breath, for the slept, for the sleeping, for the rise, or the returning. Translated for the
Stop your blood clots. It's just aroused for the breath, for the slept. Stop your blood clots. Stop your blood clots. It's just aroused for the breath, for the slept, for the sleeping, for the rise, or the returning.
Stop your blood clots. It's just aroused for the breath, for the slept, for the sleeping, for the rise, or the returning. Translated from the something of the foreigner. Categorizing something rough or honey skin for the things in this is swiveling for the imperative for the rickety picking up on the scenes for the locks that can't escape. This is the God for the gold, the worship for this is the pair, the watching the eyes for the slept for the numb for the arm for the shed those are the scales that fuse the bones. This is the beginning. voice and never sing again. And this is rather the time of the ripping and the dying, the fishing, the ringing up on the bell for the in the hour. The skies, the harvest, the ember, the end of the scare with the boar for the mountain lion will sing. Demon and the devotion for the integrity. And the positive with the air for the nursery. When the spider with the one single breathing. There's a single happiness and no one no ever not summon. Me, no shapes to fruits to find your pickling of ambition with the rather not you can bring a praying sun. This the street the ever close and this is the healing for the ever stone. Set post of the virtue. You can find yourself so well different than themselves and the celeste themselves and the sweet enough for the praying for the this is the difference between themselves. I pause for the long for the tribe to the tribe for the intangible for the magic for the increasing of use and this is the feeling. With some lassitude with the bit of together, you suffer with the cramps of the air. I can vanish what was struck for the blessed each joint for the crossing of something. Breathe up with it just a little for the distant roar for the repetition. This is the remedy for the mind emptied out and stroking down and up in air for the cane for the king and fisher. Mind for the lifted and the Vincent, the fingers and lamps of the fire. For this will all be this leer for the years for the recalling of digression. All for the returning of the natives and you can find a Christian whose eyes have felt crawl over there. This is who woman who understood over the desolating space and this is the people returning to tour. Wardy, I'm partitioning for the new fall themselves in this man for the need of the stone house. They cast and throw this though. They'll moon for the this is the cry for the distance and you though although lighting yourself for the conciliation. Multiply if the question was down for the 1,000 generations. This will only fear for the finding of the next I'll check for now. Now famous for this is the skin for the nose and more than for the pulling in the body for the prickling of an unpeeled opening manifold unran channel for the pain and channel for hearing. Within your voice and never sing again. And this is rather the time of the ripping and the dying, the fishing, the ringing up on the bell for the in the hour. The skies, the harvest, the ember, the end of the scare with the boar with the mountain lion will sing. Demon and the devotion for the integrity. And the positive for the air for the nursery when it's fine.
Simmering around looking like something like you resigned for the title from the ordinary. Simmering around looking like something like you resigned for the title from the ordinary. For the horn allows you to speak, but I didn't know for the spars. You can find yourself a bolted for the iron, for the door to the justice. You can put on the flame like sweet. Wearing the skin of a lion, for this is the kept for the vines and bones of the kingdom of the mineral. Simmering around looking like something like you resigned for the title from the ordinary. For the horn allows you to speak, but I didn't know for the spars. You can find yourself a bolted for the iron, for the door to the justice. You can put on the flame like sweet. Wearing the skin of a lion, for this is the kept for the vines and bones of the kingdom of the minerals. Cells in the rapture isn't you find yourself a seed in the storm. Furry for the Roman and find a match when I can see for the living and find yourself in the ditch in sense of places and rocket retrieving the truth and later not to find yourself at the volcano for the sharpening and concussions and you could make the heat in your own eyes. It's all about the groove and what you call the fire sequence, fire currency. You can find the current place inside of your poetry. This is a multiple launching spot for you until the wolf life for the counting and the sheep for the obliterated for this is what they are for the periodic for the crown for the three for the threes. Simmering around looking like something like you resigned for the title from the ordinary for the horn allows you to speak, but I didn't know for the spars. You can find yourself a bolted for the iron, for the door to the justice. You can put on the flame like sweet. Wearing the skin of a lion, for this is the kept for the vines and bones of the kingdom of the minerals. Cells in the rapture isn't you find yourself a seed in a storm. Furry for the Roman and find a match when I can see for the living and you find yourself in the ditch in a sense of places of rocket retrieving the truth and later not to find yourself at the volcano for the sharpening and concussions and you can make the heat in your own eyes. It's all about the groove and what you call the fire sequence, fire currency. You can find the current place inside of your poetry. This is a multiple launching spot for you until the wolf life for the counting and the sheep for the obliterated for the, this is what they are for the periodic for the crown for the three for the threes is sprawling and four too late. This is already for thirsty for this is the flat unremitting for the black top. Dry and sat down for the unremitting for the this is elastic vowels in my identity. And this is my electric ghost for this is the radio odyssey for this is the radio lonely station for the pit spectacle. This is suffering for the corruption of the all punishment for the executive for the offstation. Most pursue yourself to be your favorite for echoes of the approaching of the booth. I am the labyrinth, concrete for the corridors, more to the portal for something convicted. There's more for the all for the party for the chairs and the lawn for the afterwards. But you covered up the victim's face and you make no judgments. Yourself for the universal tone for the tactile with the firebox. That shows that you opened up the neon and clearing your heart for the Jesus wrapped inside the barbed wire. Prime, perform, penalties for you have been scripted for the untroubled. So many for how long I listen to. These are the news for the elbow for the distance and the fresh in the mornings and rival for what kept you with my awake and my nothing for more than a fly for the divine land for the putting up me to sleep for this is the seaman for the voices saying I are rose rise a dark no teeth with them white man that you could live and not for the world for that dream I dreamt for the something either safe or spared. This is sacred for this is the voice for the retired for the unstopped for the those not lost in prison for the awakening of something shut. I lips for the leagues for those behind I sought for the grateful Spaniards to the prey to become the habit with the closed eyes so away from the prophet This is a way for the seven, for the intricate and the promiscuous. Those that rose the board, right? They find themselves in the Bible, for this is the whom becomes silk and finding no way in number, reposing of the soldier who require no root. This is the requirement for the without a mark to show who we knew. Fear for the crowd, for nothing but the solitary, for himself, for the spark, for the left, for the singing, for them, and the violence, for the crash. Grass, fire battle, for the busy, for the grass. Kneeling to the burning, for the fire, for this is the aftermath. This is the vegetable, for the limbs, the bodies, and what is able, for the final threat, for the contagious panic. Green, who are whores, wide, but the same for the sovereigns. Who's the beach, for the lift, for the blood, someone's names, the he thinks, and you can find yourself. We keep slipping. This is the kid for the environment, and admiral, for the man, for the wounded, like the Adam who likes he walked. Reflecting with the beginning, for the flexing like a green around him. We're trapped inside of a body, well, who knows who can carry, do it, with who can read it, with the invisible. Inclined to the songs of the wild, the bird sings. This is the beat, the sound for the dropping in the milk inside the money for the quiet, the shopping, the king of pain. His hand about a rep, for the held over the breath, for the exhausted before you wish and confess. Like you, as an executioner for the rope in the hair. This is the brutalized with the palm, for the springs, for this is the springing up in the fine stream. This is another splendouring for the anger. Throw the darkness with the sand for the water, and noise and trouble, and tribulation to define yourself and alienated for the cause of the sorcery. Burying for the end, for the distant learning, for the walking eye, for the silence. Ever came for the sun and brilliance, the lightning like a spell for the words and the casting, the waking and woken, walking by himself and himself and the naked with the same for the discovering of the ship and the rose and he wrote, he weapons, his slaves, he spade, he anchored the ship at the bangle for the banner for the murder. This is the reverberate for the river, the squirrel. You remember the oak and how it been for the tree, for the hour, for the did not know his soul, but the stranger to him. It was the venture forth in the uncertain mortal field. This is the high rigor for the ore, the soil. This is the pounding for the abuse, for the carcass, for the iron, for the words, for the pigeon shits and run off for the needle, for the suckler, enough for the hand, for the head, for this to continue to wear. And tapping again for the ransom, the melon, the fish. This is another promises, and you can mind the man, misguided, the truth to catch the villages and understanding the chief. This is the good prayer for the press, for the more, for the things, for the desiration, for the justice, for this is the hunger, for the words and cane. From the illegible, for the sense and amber, this is the sea. From your fine birds dwelling, this is the place for the labor and find yourself stuff, for the riches and north and the rest of the rest, take up the body, with the distributors and the fascination, the shame. Undarkly for the glitterings and the smoldering, for the sea like coal. Interrogated for the each inquisitor, for the humiliation, for the echoes himself, for the body violated, for the silence, and this is alone. Exposed for the approaching, for this is an anger. Archived for the blister of the bruise. You for the oath, for the fabrics, for the faith, for the blood, for the smoke we drawn, for the ice and the excited, for the mat drop. And lies for the burner, for the sums and the suppositions. Every time for the making the more wilderness, it goes entirely too long for the snail, for the screw the beam, for the this is the deer tail. Tassel for the arrow, for the ear maker, for the enemies, and understanding the vision, for the commanding to the blurry. Sons, I alive, and I alive, for the memories are not to multiply, for the foes are never meant for those to be the dog, for the jaded, for the turquoise. Kings for the field, for the legends, and this is the broke. Broken pain for the dirt, for the wild that gave birth. This is the sex, is the whip. This is the slime of the absence, and the overjoyed to see the upper of again. Essential for the exchange. More simmering around again, like something like you resigned for the dollar, for the ordinary, for the horn allows you to speak, but I didn't know for this far. You can find yourself a both for the iron, for the door to the justice. You can put on the flame like sweet. Wearing the skin of a lion, but this is the kept of the ride.
Aroused for the aroma. This is the breath when it's left for the sleep and the recedes, it returns with the pink. Those are swelling for the mate, for the threat, for the strange excess. More from the translation for something former, for the grammar of an ornament, for the poise, for the laptop, for the good looking something strange, the evolution of technology. Little scary for the digital evergreen and the midnight currency. Transfers to the failing posts and the ceaseless. Molding of the information for the upload looking like an epilogue. This is the scene, eye patch for the surrounding, for the each obsidian, for the more being. This is the bee revolving, separate, for this is the mature. This is the miniature for the toy, for the clown, for this is the philosopher, for the king, for the categorizing, for this is the rough, for the honeyest skin of things, and this is the swiveling of the perially. This is something unseen like locks with the escaping camp. This is his nature for the zeros and the ones. This is the void for the integritous God. This has been watching those with the gone, for the dream, for the withdrawn, for the persevering, for the returning, with the alert. This is the invisible word for the thousands of scales. Fused with the bones for the lightning. But this is the fraud for the flattering. This is the fingers that begin the day of unraveling. And this is something more than adventure. This is the contending of the moment for the you living for the ever. Like alchemy over the understanding of fucking. And this is the mass cracked by the stones of the mastering God. Never for the God's favorite, the clever, never for the messenger. Bearing organs for the breaking the allegory. For the wisdom is only the value. Coming from the last for the hunger, for the demanding, for the diligence, for the density. Invention for instinct to claim for the something of the small rise for the above the plane. There's something to a separate song for another day, for the ending, for the lentil, for the brown, for the uncounted, for the overlook, for the clamors, for the public, for the blocking, for something unlikely, for noticing and here by the arrivals of face shining with the oils and many miles. Where hot, scratch below, package for the carousel, lights too high, too bright for the any real illumination, for the fun, something like a bumble punchline. Standing still away for the revelation, this is the recollection for the highlightly, how west, less of travel for the distant arm and memory. This is your simile for the soundtrack. This is for the injecting the coffee, boys. I am not the boy from the previous. I am less devious and envious, and this is the seer for the poison shipwreck. Marble green, shadow like a statue, shouting the pop songs in the morning. Less than you can find a sad song in the morning. This is exhaustion. This is immutated. Find yourself a little bit for the soul inside of thousands of sunsets. This is centuries faded for the galleries that as to the floor. Fears to find and feel so fugitive for the voice to blow. You're the gravity for the nerve for the opening of an aching body for the aching of an unhoused incarnation. You can punch like saucers from the kings of porcelain. Rise in a sign of can of life for the gratitude. Maybe the girl for the unshaken grinding torso. Consider the gaze of the pretty for the pose and pose more for the thought with the turn over the one with the mirrors and savage. And this is the allergy. Attempt to find a feel for the exhausted form for the leaking again. For this is the ordeals of the grounding. Hand my hand for the hours and the source of burning. This is the understanding what was previous atomically your angel. Unfinished and unfastened, but destined for the stool for the sun and certain. Minor for the royalty, for the rusticated, for this is the unhelpful climate. Solvents, this is the pillars, this is the built, this is because of the new manifold. For the useful systems against you, for the daunting yourself, the resistance of an object, I can tell you my soul.
It wasn't never sing again. And this is rather the time of the ripping and the dying, the vision, the ringing, the bringing, the vulnerability in the hour, the skies, the harvest, the ember, the end of the spirit, the boy with the mountain lion was sing. Demon and the devotion for the interior, and the nerve body for the head, with the nursery, with the body, with the secret, with the system, no happiness, no one, no ever, not summer.
Standing so straight and so tall. And now I'm remembering the ups and downs. And I can still hear you say, I'd like to find a man who invented children. And you would smile down at me, and me giggling, looking up at you, wondering what it all meant. Now I know. It meant to struggle to stay, to raise a family tree, to be dedicated, loving and giving. It meant going without for yourself or me. It meant taking back talk and sass. It meant getting the talk from the neighbors and said, I said, you were the worst father of them all. Oh, I thought you would let me stay out all night. I saw the heavy tears which filled your eyes and I sulked and pouted, and I hardly doubted whether my children would say these things to me. But the years flew by, leaving youth to die, and age went out like it always does. And everything you said about truth and love has finally come to pass. Today, I can look in your smiling eyes and see you do a side grin. Your
sing.
grateful I am
Demanding a
to be
devotion for
your
the
child.
interior. The body of the head, the mystery, when it's body, the single happiness, no one, no ever, not summon. No shades, to find your pickling up ambition with the rather not you can find the prank of sun. Desire to shrink the ever closer, this is the beginning for the ever stone. Set pose for the virtue, you can find the self with so different than themselves and the celestial themselves. And speaking enough for the praying for this is the difference between themselves. I pass for the long for the try to the try for the intangible for the magical, increasing the use and this is the feeling. So, the lassitude with the rhythm together, you suffer with the cramp today. I can find us what was struck with the blessing to each joint for the crossing of something. Breathe up with it just a little for the bliss of the word for the remediation. This is the remedy for the mind emptied out and stroking down up and air for the cane for the king and fisher. Mind for the lifted in the vents and the fingers and lamps for the fire for this will all be this leer of the year for the calling of digression. All for the returning of the natives and you can find a Christian whose eyes have felt crawl over the this is who woman who understood over the desolated space and this is the people returning to toward warding our partition for the new fault themselves in this man for the need of the stone house. They cast and throw this though. They moon for this, the cry for the distance and you though although lighting yourself for the consolation. Multiplied the question was down for the 1,000 generations. This one here for the finding of the next object for now. Now things for this is skin for the most more than with the pulling of the body for the beckoning of the unpeeled opening manifold. I ran the channel for the pain, the channel for the voice of the sing again. This is rather the time of the ripping and the dying of vision and bringing the fun of ever the in the hour the skies the eye of the ember the end of the sea with the floor of the mountain lion was sing. Demanding a deep ocean for the interior. The body with the head with the nursery when it's body with the single breathing. This is single happiness of no one, no ever, not summon. No shades of fruits to find the picking of the ambition with the rather not you can find the praying sun inside the straight to ever close and this is the beginning for the ever stone. Set pose of the virtue, you can find yourself with so other than yourself and the celestial themselves. Speaking enough of the praying for this is the difference between themselves. I pass for the long for the try to the try for the intangible for the magic for the increasing the use and this is the feeling. The sun, the lassitude with the rhythm together, you suffer with the cramp of the I can vanish what was struck with the blessing to each joint for the crossing of something. Breathe over it just a little bit of this is the word for the remediation. This is the remedy for the mind emptied out and stroking down and up and air for the cane for the king and fisher. Mind for the lifted in the vents and the fingers and lamps of the fire for this will all be this leer for the year for the recalling of digression. All for the returning of the natives and you can find a Christian whose eyes have death crawl over the this is who woman who understood over the desolating space and this is the people returning to toward warding our partition for the new fault and themselves in this man for the need of the stone house. They cast and throw this though. They moon for the this is the cry for the distance and you though although enlightening yourself with the consolation. Multiply the question was down for the 1,000 generations. This one here for the finding of the next object for now. Now famous for this is the skin for the mills and water with the pulling of the body for the prickling of the unpeeled opening manifold. I ran the channel for the pain, the channel for hearing. Oh, the voice and the sing again. This is rather the time of the ripping and the dying of vision and bringing the fun of ever the in the hour the skies the hottest the end of the end of the spirit the over the mountain lion was sing. Demanding a deep ocean for the interior. And the body with the head with the nursery when it's body with the single breathing. This is single happiness you know when you're ever not summon. Change the roots to find your pivoting of the ambition with the ground not you can find the praying sun inside the street the ever close and this is the beginning for the ever stone. Set pose of the virtue, you can find yourself with so wonderful yourself and the cells of themselves and speaking enough of the praying for this is the difference between themselves. I pass for the long for the try to the try for the intangible for the magic for the increasing the use and this is the feeling. The lassitude with the rhythm together, you suffer with the cramp today. I can divine what was struck with the blessing to each joint for the crossing of something. Breathe up with it just a little bit of this little word for the remediation. This is the remedy for the mind emptied out and stroking down and up and air for the cane for the king and fisher. Mind for the lifted in the vents and the fingers and lamps of the fire for this will all be this leer for the year for the calling of digression. All for the returning of the natives and you can find a Christian whose eyes have felt crawl over the this is who woman who understood over the desolating space and this is the people returning to toward warding our partition for the new fault and themselves in this man for the need of the stone house. They cast and throw this though. They moon for the this is the cry for the distance and you though although enlightening yourself with the consolation. Multiplies the question was down for the 1,000 generations. This will only fear for the finding of the next object for now. Now famous for this is the skin for the mills and water with the pulling of the body for the prickling of the unpeeled opening manifold. I ran channel for the pain, the channel for hearing. Oh, the voice and never sing again. And this is rather the time of the ripping and the dying of vision and bringing the fun of ever the in the hour the skies the harvest the ember the end of the spirit the boy with the mountain lion was sing. Demanding a deep ocean for the interior and the body with the head for the nursery when it's body with the single breathing. This is single happiness from no one, no ever, not summon. No shades of fruits to find your pickling up ambition with the rather not you can find the praying of sun beside the straight the ever close and this the healing for the ever stone. Set pose of the virtue, you can find yourself with so wonderful themselves and the celestial themselves and speaking enough of the praying for this is the difference between themselves themselves. I part for the long, for the tribe, to the tribe, for the intangible, for the magic, for the increasing of use and this feeling. With some lassitude, with the rhythm together, you suffer with the cramps of the I can vanish what was struck with the blessing to each joint for the crossing of something. Breathe over it just a little for the this of the word for the remediation. This is the remedy for the mind emptied out and stroking down and up and air for the cane, for the king and fisher. Mind for the lifted and defensive the fingers and lamps of the fire, for this will all be this leer for the years for the recalling of digression. All for the returning of the natives, and you can find a Christian whose eyes have felt crawl over there. This is who women who understood and over the desolating space, and this is the people returning to tour, warding out petitioning for the new fault in themselves and this man for the need of the stone house. They cast and throw this though. They'll moon for the this is the cry for the distance and you though, although lightening yourself for the conciliation. Multiplied the question was down for the 1,000 generations. This will only fear for the finding of the next object for now. Now famous for this is the skin for the mills and water, for the pulling in the body, for the prickling of an unpeeled opening, manifold, unran channel for the pain, the channel for hearing. So listen your voice and let the sing again. And this is rather the time of the ripping and the dying, the fishing, the
Gravity for the nerve, for the opening of an aching body, for the aching of an unhoused incarnation. You can
can hunch like saucers from the kings of porcelain. Rise in a sign, a can of life for the gratitude, maybe the curve for the unshaken, divine and torso. Consider for the gates, for the pretty, for the pose and pose mark, for the thought, for the turn over the one with the mirror from Sabbath, and this is the elegy. Attempt to find a field, exhausted form for the leaking again, but this is the ordeal surrounding. Hand my hand for the hours and the source of burning. This is the understanding what was previous in time to be your angel. Unfinished and unfastened, but destined for the store, for the sun and a certain. Minor for the royalty, for the rusticated, for this is the unhelpful climbing. Solids, this is the pillars, this is the building, this is because they do manifold. This puts us in the like a system. For the staunching yourself, the resistance of an object, I can tell you my soul. Exhausted. This is the hand. Love, order, torn your nails so flesh and swells, closing up the bed, eyelids in the socket. But this should be something making small change for you to see. Fingers and eye take it to the most and the nuts of the brain. Time is not big enough to hide. This is the ordinary. You can't tell the butterflies, the flame, the off the counter, something finished with the end. Barely something added to the addiction. The road of the fashion. This is where it'll back to the route. Line, catch you like hardware. This is the easy and the alpha. This is poetry. This is the unlining of curves. Change to the multiple words of surface. Miles and missiles of fine sea, but not see you not the fraud, the slime, not the self. Try to not the sun fall. This is the little bit of the rain day. Also bring the palm break. Don't strong with the seeds with the iodine. You're here now. Exile with this, keep it ignoring yourself. Taste the way you fire.
Arouse for the aroma. This is the breath when the slap for the sleep and the receives, returns for the pink. Those are swelling for the mate, for the threat, for the strange excess. More for the translation, for something former, for the grammar of an ornament, for the poise, for the laptop, for the good looking something strange, for the evolution of technology. A little scary for the digital evergreen and the midnight currency. Transfers to the failing pulse and the ceaseless. Molding into information for the upload looking like an epilogue. This is the scene, eye patch for the surrounding, for the each obsidian, for the morbine. This is the bee revolving, revolving, separate for this is the miniature. This is the miniature for the toy, for the clown, for this is the philosopher, for the king, for the categorizing, for the, this is the rough, for the honey and skin of things, and this is the swiveling of the period. This is something unseen like locks with the escaping can. This is his nature for the zeros and the ones. This is the void for the integrous God. This has been watching those for the gone, for the dream, for the withdrawn, for the persevering, for the returning with the alert. This is the visible word for the thousands of scales. Fusing the bones with lightning, but this is the pro for the feather. This is the fingers that never begin the day of unraveling, and this is something more than adventure. This is the continuing of the moment for the deep living, for the ever sleep like apathy over the understanding that never barking, and this is the mask cracked by the stones of a mastering guy. Never for the God's favorite, the glamour, never for the legion, the messenger. Bearing organs for the break and the allegory, for the wisdom it's only the value of the gun. Coming for the last, for the hunger, for the demanding, for the diligence of the industry. Invention for instinct to claim for the something, and the small rise for the above the plane. There's something to the surface of the song, for the another day, for the ending, for the lentil, for the brown, for the uncounted, for the overlook, for the glamours, for the public, for the blocking, for the something unlikely from noticing the here by the arrivals of base shining with the oils and many miles. We're hot to the scratch below, package for the carousel, lights too high for too bright for the any real illumination for the London, something like a bumble punchline. Standing in the doorway for the revelation, this is the recollection for the high lightly, how west less of you travel for the distant and memory. This is your simile for the subject. This is for the injecting for the you can call for the beginning of what you can call poise. I am not for the b-boy for the previous. I am for the less, the lives and envious and envious. And this is this here for the voice and shipwreck. Marble green, shadow for like a statue ever for the shouting of pop songs in the morning. Less than you can find a side song in the morning. This is exhaustion. This is immutated. Find yourself a little bit for the soap inside of thousands of sunsets. This is centuries faded for the galleries of ash too full. And the fears to find it feels so fugitive for the voice to blow. You're the gravity for the nerve for the opening of an aching body, for the aching of an unhoused, for the carnation. You can hunch like saucers from the kings of porcelain. Rise in a sign and can of life for the gratitude, maybe the curve for the unshapen vine torso. Pencil for the gaze of the pretty, for the pose and postmark, for the thought, for that you can turn over the one for the mirrors and savage. And this is the elegy. Attempt to find a feel for the exhausted form, for the leaking again, for this is the ordeals, the rounding. Hand my hand for the hours and the source of burning. This is the understanding what was previous atomically an angel. Unfinished and unfastened, but destined for the stool, for the sun and uncertain. Minor for the royalty, for the rusticated, for this is the unhelpful climate. Solvents, this is the pillars, this is the boats, for this is because of the new manifold, for the useful system delving like a whisper against you, for the staunching of self, the resistance of an object. I can tell you my soul, exhausted. This is the hand, lovely, boredom. Torn your nails so flesh and swells and closing up for the bed for the eyelids and socket. For this should be something making small change for you to see. Fingers and eye tickle if it's the moles and the nudge of a debris. dawn is not thick enough to hide. This is the ordinary for the candle-colored butterfly, for the flaring roster counter, something tender for your hand. Hearing something edible for the eviction, for the vulgar of the flesh. And this is the word needle back for the rapture. I capture you like hardware. This is the previously unknown for this is the poetry. This is the unlining for the currency to be changed into multiple learns to surface. Miles and missiles and fine and seething for not a seeking, not the frog or slime, for not the seldom for the attracted by the sunfall. This is a little bit for the rainy day, for the also rained upon the ridicule. Joan Strong for the seeds, for the iodine, to least your peer now. Exile for this is the keeping the four in yourself, for the tasty finds of a fire, for the breath is low.